remember I started streaming and I
But
clicked that
why do
recording
we
because I didn't want
need
to
to
record it like 20
understand,
minutes before service.
especially the Hebrew scriptures? Why should we read the Hebrew scriptures? Why should we worry about any of the stuff that goes on? Nancy, when did you bring that up? When we were at a meeting or at your house or what? At the retreat, when you brought that up. We said, well, we need to address that. Why we need to have an understanding of the Old Testament and how it applies. And then again, how what Jesus had to say is different from what happens in the Old Testament. And it's not a matter of God changing. Or is it? Or is it a matter of us changing our perception of God? Or is it? What does it all mean? And trust me, we won't answer all those questions during this season one. We won't. But just so you understand the framework that I'm functioning from, those of you who were here for pancakes understand that I quoted Henri Nouwen in his thought called Way of the Heart. The Way of the Heart. And it's a way to stand in God's love. The first thing that you do is you set yourself apart. Just set yourself apart. Even if you're surrounded by people, you still set yourself apart. And then you're silent. You stop listening. You stop talking. You turn off the TV and the computer and the radio. You're silent. And you try to open yourself to one voice. And that would be the voice of God. And then finally, you put yourself into unceasing prayer. That sounds dangerous now, doesn't it? Let me just go walking down the street and try to cross Ogden and have my head bowed and my hands folded walking across the street in prayer, knowing that God is going to protect my sorry keister. That's not going to happen. I'm going to die. Or there's going to be an awful lot of angry people as I'm walking across. Can't you just see it? And that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what Melody now was talking about. That's not what Paul was talking about on Jesus. In unceasing prayer is being in tight communion with the Almighty, so that you are always mindful of what God wants of you. Sin is a separation from God. Sin is a separation from God. And when we are in unceasing prayer, we are connected to God so that we cannot step outside of that will of God for us. And then we may have to close our eyes or anything like that. It doesn't mean we have to be in here or on our knees on our bed or wherever. It just means that we have to make sure, or we don't even have to try at those points. By the grace of God, we are able to not do anything that God doesn't want us to do. To not be anything that God doesn't want us to do. It's sort of a framework. But hold on to that thought about the light. That'll come in a little bit. But right now, we're going to have the opportunity to give back. We have been given so much. Sometimes what we've been given has been easy, wonderful. It's the orange that you have, the juice drips down to your face, and it's just as good as it can get. And then other times, it's when you have to slog your way through wind and snow and sleet, and it's hard. But it's still a gift from God. As God has blessed you, let's return some of the blessing that's taken over.
praying the prayer of Jesus interpreted by our fellow co-extraordinary Mary Alexandre. Lord, source of life and life, creator of the universe, we offer you praise and glory. With gratitude we acknowledge your presence in and around us. We ask and embrace all your creation, preserving and protecting it, to deliver it back to you in peace, tranquility, and justice. Nourish and sustain us in these efforts, and free us from the distractions that evil and injustice may bring. Be merciful when we are in error, and let us turn in forgiveness. For you, Lord, the source of life and life, creator of all the universe, are the beginning and the end we seek always. Amen.
Good morning. Today I will be reading from the inclusive Bible translation, Genesis chapter 22, verses 1 through 14. After these events, God tested Abraham. Abraham, God called. Here I am, Abraham replied. Take your son, your only child Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Seeing, offer him there as a burnt offering on the mountain I will point out to you. Rising early the next morning, Abraham saddled the donkey and took along 2 workers and his son Isaac. Abraham chopped the wood for the burnt offering and started on the journey to the place God showed him. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Then Abraham said to the workers, "Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go there, and we will worship and come back to you." Abraham took wood for the burnt offering and gave it to Isaac to carry. In his own hands he carried the fire and the knife. Then the 2 of them went alone. Isaac said, "Father." "Here I am, child," Abraham replied. "Here are the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "My child, God will provide the lamb for the burnt offering." Then the 2 of them went on together. When they arrived at the place God had pointed out, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied up his son Isaac and put him on the altar on the top of the wood. Abraham stretched out his hand and seized the knife to kill the child. But the angel of God called to him from the heaven, "Abraham, Abraham!" "Here I am," he replied. "Do not raise your hand against the boy," the angel said. Do not do the least thing to him. I know how deeply you revere God. Since you do not refuse me your son, your only child." Then looking up, Abraham saw a ram caught by the horns in the bush. He went and he took the ram, offered it up as the burnt offering instead of his own child. Abraham called the place, "God provides." And so it is said to this day, on this mountain, Yahweh provides. Such a love I can't escape.
Let us start here. My granddaughter's name is Violet. Say her name.
Violet.
Her mother's name is Andrea. Say her name.
Andrea.
My daughter's name is Elizabeth. Say her name.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth's mother's name is Deborah. Say her name.
Deborah.
My daughter's name is Lindsay. Say her name.
Lindsay.
Her mother's name is Jill. Say her name.
Jill.
My mother's name is Frances. Say her name.
Francis.
My grandmother's names were Edith and Helga. Say their names.
Edith and Helga.
If you have a granddaughter, say her name. If you have a daughter, say her name. If you have a wife, say her name. If you have a mother, say her name.
Julie.
If you have grandmothers, say their names.
Charlene and Janice.
The month of the woman, the day of the woman. We did not touch all of the women who have touched us. be mindful of them. Not just this month, but all months. Because we have been called to be more than just receivers of their care. We have been called to be more than just distributors of their care. We have been called to be a lighthouse. It's a lighthouse up there. A lighthouse has two jobs. One is to help sailors steer away from dangers, and the other is to help them guide themselves into a safe port. That is what we do. That is what we must do. Whether you're a male or a female, whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. That is what we do. Not only for us, but for them. That is the rock upon which we base what we do and what we think. That is the rock upon which our faith is built. Not about us, but about them. I don't think there is one, but if there was a month of the man, we might say those same things. Why did God call Abraham to kill his son? Don't answer that. Because that's not the God of Jesus, is it? Actually, that's not the God of Abraham either. Child sacrifice, human sacrifice, was not unknown in the Middle East during those days, 1,000 years before Jesus. It was not unknown within Judaism, within the Hebrews at that time, being somehow sullied by the worship of pagans, heathens, not heathens, let's not go to heathens, okay? But of organized religions that called for things like temple prostitutes and child sacrifice. And so God called Abraham to sacrifice a son, his only son. Yeah, it really wasn't his only son, was it? He had that other son from the servant girl. But the only one that he bore with his wife, Sarah. They got right up to it. Boys on the pile of sticks. Boys asked, what's going to happen here? What's this going to be about? God won't provide. And right at the very last moment, the angel comes, and it's never real clear to me if it's the angel or God that's talking. But the voice says, hey, I was kidding. I don't want you to do that. I know that you're faithful now. Really? Now you found that? Don't hurt that boy. If there is such a thing as a shlemiel, that's somebody who does things to other people. There is also something that is known as a shlemazel. That's the people to whom things are done to. Abraham is an interesting character in the Old Testament in that he was both. At times he was the first superhero. He was big, bad warrior Abraham, conquering all of those other people. Then there were times God goes to Abraham, who's a wealthy guy, and he says, hey, I want you to pack up all your stuff and all your animals and all your people, and I want you to just get it all together, and I want you to move. Where am I going? I'll let you know when we get there. And he did it. Did you do that? hear a voice coming out of a cloud or out of even a burning bush or anything like that? He said, hey, it's time for you to go. Okay, sometimes it's a minister thing, but I don't necessarily think that I would be very quick about doing that. Oh, I love Abraham. I'll just do what the voice tells me to do. And off they go. And then the voice comes again and says, hey, I want you to sacrifice your son to me. Okay, I'll go sacrifice my boy. As if Abraham had to prove himself again. So God's playing games with the man. God's doing tricks with the man. God is trying somehow to fool the man into doing the kinds of things that no person would think of doing. And yet, isn't that what God calls us to do? God spoke to his about to be disciples and said, come with me. Come with me. And you're not going to be fishing for fish anymore. You're going to be fishing for men and women. Actually, he said men. At least that's what men wrote in the Bible. It's not the same as killing your kid, is it? But it does mean taking away that which was and turning it into that which shall be. It means taking all of the things that you left and somehow not looking back at them as you look forward into what's going to be. You know, back then, if a person died, they died. They went to a great foggy place called Sheol, where maybe they walked around, maybe they didn't. They laid down, sat down. They didn't really care. There was no color. There was no fun. There was no nothing. Sheol. Until Jesus came along and said, this day thou shalt be with me in paradise. 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 Looking forward to what's going to be the best chapters of our lives. I mean, these lives that we've got here are pretty good, but not always, right? These lives that we have here are fulfilling and complete. No, they're not. But maybe they will be. But we have to start someplace. Where we have to start is with understanding that God's not playing games. Whatever they wrote about that stuff, God's not playing games. God's being straight with us. And say, build your rock on this promise. No. Build your life on the rock of this promise. The rock of this promise. Remember, I told you that Jesus might not have been a carpenter. Because if you take a look at the Holy Land, anybody ever been to the Holy Land? Not a lot of trees there, right? But a lot of stones. The word in Aramaic to describe Joseph and Jesus was builder. Now, as the Europeans translated the words, it came up, well, what do we build with? We build with trees because we got trees growing every place. We got trees growing where we don't want them. So we'll cut down the trees, and they build their houses and their buildings and everything else out of trees. So they're carpenters. When maybe a more accurate description would have been masons. There's the Da Vinci Code all over. But that gives a whole new understanding, isn't it? This is Peter, the rock on whom I will build my church. Or build your life on the rock that I am establishing for you, because that is the promise of God. But how are we going to be able to understand the promise of God when we have God playing all these tricks on guys like Abraham and playing games about these guys like Abraham? Because Jesus says, I'm bringing you a new thing. We are a new thing. We are a light in the darkness. We're the promise of God, but God's promises are true. We are the lighthouse that hopefully will steer people away from the rocks on which they could founder. We're also the lighthouse that can help guide people home. But we need to understand that Jesus has brought us something new. I like it. I like the new. I appreciate the old, but I like the new. All of the old was beige and brown and gray and black. What am I dressed in today? Gray and black. But I like the newness of the color, and the sound, and the love with which we get to treat people as we are a lighthouse, just towards each other, but to the world. Pray with me. Help us, dear God. Help us during this season of Lent, open our hearts and our minds, and our spirits and our doors, so that all may know they're safe here. Help us be a lighthouse. And help us learn that we can trust you. Amen.
Invite all those that feel comfortable in standing, please stand, and everyone, please join us in As You Go, Tell the World, number 211 in your books.
What a good idea. As you go, tell the world. How are you going to do that? How does St. Francis say to do that? I've told you this. Anybody? Anybody? Anybody?
Preach the gospel as gospel teach.
Say that again.
Preach the gospel as necessary to his words.
You get a star on your report. Preach the gospel. If necessary, use words. And if you can drag a beer, trust me, I'll have some words. So, go in peace, go in grace, go in energy and in thought and prayer.